Seahawks 24-3 over the Dolphins, a game we sort of expected it to go on, the defensive side of the ball. But man, we're 3-0, and what a start that this team's having. Guys, we're going to get right into this. We're live. This is a post-game reaction show. Right after this.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
And it's run. Get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got a lead. Leo Wilson to catch. Smith and Jimbo. The Seahawks are going to hold the NFC Championship.
Every year, you're going to know those. Is it going to be
You've
another
got to look for
9-8?
players who've got to finish something.
They have to fix the offense.
Part of the success and part of the
ambition of being the LOB
Want to hear that's trading DK Metcalf.
Trade him aggressive.
This is the Hawks Zone Rundown with Ryan and Bryce.
Seahawks 24-3 over the Dolphins. Just a outstanding performance by the defense. Bryce, what's your thoughts overall here tonight, man?
Overall, man, like you said, we kind of figured this with Skylar Thompson starting for the Dolphins that they were going to struggle on offense. They even ended up going to, I think it was Tim Boyle at one point. Defense looked good, man. Like, even though we had some injuries, Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, the D-line created pressure. Derek Hall looked phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, overall, good performance from the defense. Offense, they're just missing. There's certain things like Geno today, one of the picks he threw near our own end zone. Like,
Yeah.
dude, take
Trying
the
to force
safety.
it.
Like, don't force something when you're falling and you overshoot Charbonnet and you give up. Like, luckily the defense held, but you give up an interception within your own 10-yard line. Like, you can't do that stuff against good teams. Like, if we're playing the Niners or the Cardinals or some of these better teams that we are going to start playing, that's a play that can't happen. Just eat it. Yes, it's 2 points, but we can flip the field and still play good defense. You don't want to have it where you're trying to force that and they pick it and go for 7. That's too much of a point swing. So I think Seattle, like, they're getting better, but we still haven't played a true quarterback yet. And we'll get that this coming Monday.
I was just going to say, I mean, look, first of all, statistically, defense, a team that start 3-0, they've held their opponents under 150 passing yards. That hasn't happened since like the 70s Steelers or something. So, I get it. People are going to say, well, you know what? Look who you played today, quarterback-wise. Bo Nix, a rookie first game, and then Brissett, yeah, he's a starter, but he's kind of bounced around the league. But, hey, man, you only play who you can play. You play who's in front of you. So I look at that, and I say, hey, man, hell yeah, because you just mentioned Derek Hall. That dude is a freaking beast. Like, I love it. Guys, we talk about injuries real quick here. Byron Murphy went, hammy issue. Both those guys in return. Leonard Williams ribs. We'll hear reports later. But then you're like, okay, those two guys are out. Those are big time guys, especially Leonard. Byron's coming on. He'll come on and be his own dominant guy. But then, okay, this D line is exciting for me. You're right. You Derek Hall. You still have guys that are still like, those guys went out and this team was still rolling, still putting on pressure. Derek Hall smashing dudes. Like, he looks good. And Draymond Jones is still there, and Jaron Reed in the middle. And, it's like guys go down previous years, you'd be really concerned. Like, Chenna is still out. When we get Chenna back, you're going to be fired up, pumped up for this D-line. But it's okay that he's out. Take your time, get healed, get ready to go, because we have dogs all over this line, I feel like. And I just feel like what Mike McDonald's drawing up, they'll bring in the odd blitz, Dotson straight up the gut on that blitz. That was beautiful. Just rock Skylar. Basically said that's probably what took him out of the game, that play before he got hit again. I mean, they were swarming him. I mean, this kind of went how we talked about. Obviously, they have a backup QB, right? And I thought they would Tyreek would get a little more involved. They had him covered. They had him covered the whole game. Pressure and Skylar Thompson. They went to the ground a little bit. That was really their most effective, if you want to call their offense effective at all. I mean, 3 points. But, the defense just, again, looked live. They were tackling, just the pressure from that D-line. That's what I love to see the most. So, I get it. You mentioned the offense. It's, again, no Ken Walker. You're right. That first quarter was great. Those numbers were amazing. Of course, capped off by another big time play and touchdown by DK Metcalf and Geno. I mean, it looks like that's going to be a common thing. But yeah, then penalties started adding up. Penalties on the O-line, penalties, Cross got beat for a sack. He's been solid, so that's going to happen. But it just sort of, you found yourself in 3rd and 20s, and third down conversions were really poor. So you're right. But at the end of the day, 3-0, and so you're confident, like we've talked about, that these things can get cleaned up, but we're still going along and we're still winning football games. That's a beautiful part about it, man. I mean, I'm just coming off here, live reaction show, and I really couldn't be happier with this 3-0 start.
Honestly, man, like the thing that just still concerns me is the fact we haven't played a solid quarterback yet.
Right.
Like that's why I'm very interested to see what is like a couple things with the Monday night game coming up now. Like you're playing Jared Goff, you're in Detroit. Detroit's a good football team. They're going to be well coached. Like again, we'll have to wait and see what this defense looks like when they play a competent offense. Because Bo Nix, rookie, first game, they didn't really do much. He actually did much better today in their win over Tampa Bay.
Yeah, they killed Tampa.
Got, what we had last week in Jacoby Brissett. Like he moved the ball enough to keep them in that game. And then today, obviously, we went through the third string quarterback and fourth string quarterbacks. But like things for me that, concern me with the offense is we only possessed the ball 31% or 31 minutes. They possessed it 28. So that's still really close. We won the time of possession battle, but not enough. But like our third down efficiency today was shit.
Yeah.
We were
third down was bad. Yeah.
Like you have to sustain drives. And that's to me where I think I saw some of the concern for me was we weren't sustaining those drives. We had 21 first down, but when we get to that third down and we have 11 of them and we're only converting like 3, that's scary against a better team that's going to make you pay. Charbonnet, though, I will say this. Everyone needs to stop the hate on Charbonnet.
Yes.
18 carries, 91 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He is a different style of running back. But the one thing he has that I am so impressed with is his contact to balance. The first guy doesn't necessarily knock Zach Charbonnet over. And again, running lanes had their moments where they were there. There were other times they weren't. I'm hoping this, starts to get that running game going. But the other thing to me is Anthony Bradford, man. Like they've got to have some reason for continuing to play this guy. Like the amount of penalties he's taking, I think he's on his 7th penalty already in 3 games. Like there must be a huge gap between him and Haynes for this guy to be in a rotation with Bradford and not actually just take the job from him. Like there's got to be something there that we're missing in practice, in film, whatever it is inside the building walls where it's like, okay, Christian Haynes isn't there yet, but I don't know how you keep going down this road. Like it's going to kill you at some point where it's going to be a crucial play and we take a dumb holding penalty or a dumb unnecessary roughness, and it's going to be because of Anthony Bradford. Lincoln Tomlinson looked a bit better today.
Yep.
He did. Connor Williams looked a lot better
really
today.
Yeah, he looked good.
Stone Forsythe held up as he should as a right tackle.
As a backup right tackle.
Backup right
Gotta
tackle.
remember that.
Anthony Bradford scares the shit out of me. Like he just does.
Yeah. And I think you and I talked about that, and I agree. Going back to what you said, you're worried about playing real quarterback. I mean, we're gonna play a real quarterback and a really good team next Monday night, and that's gonna be a test, I think. But we talked about the schedule, knowing the schedule, the first 2 games was gonna be a nice little sort of landing pad to get our feet wet with this brand new scheme. Miami obviously was supposed to be a lot better. They were supposed to have Tua. we were, we want to say fortunate. I mean, you don't want to see a guy not play because of that, but we didn't have to face Tua and that dynamic offense. And so there's 3 quarterbacks, but like I said, when I look on the defensive side of the ball, I'm impressed with this D line. Like they are getting pressure, and that is huge because we haven't seen that in years prior. Like there has been games where you're like, is anybody getting to this quarterback at all? You've sat there and watched this team in prior years, and can anybody get some pressure? And then today, Derek Hall running around like a madman. They're the way they're drawing up some of these schemes and timing up these blitzes, and I like it. And that's real quarterback or not real quarterback. Now, when you flip it, I agree. I think the Bradford thing, man, like I think I mentioned it last week where it was, if they were 1-2, maybe they would be quicker to make the change. There's got to be something else they see where they're like, you know what, we like him in certain aspects of the game, and we're not quite there to give up on him. But I agree. I mean, you can't continue like that's, Gino, there was times where he was getting pressured, and you mentioned the third down, it's got to clean up, but they were put in some really long third down situations as well. It wasn't third and short that we talked about. And some of that's obviously that, and, going back to, hey, Ken Walker is out, and a guy that Charbonnet ran the ball good. I mean, I agree, he ran it hard. Like you mentioned, he bounced off again. He ran the ball hard, and I agree. Get off this guy, and that's, people are so quick to judge and have short memories. They base off one game. We talked about it. He started. He's not a starting back. He got put in that position, and there's a lot of intangibles to running the football on a football team, right? An offensive line, it starts there. But he seemed to run it with some purpose today, and maybe realizing, look, I didn't maybe have the best game last week, and I'm going to come out and just run hard. 2 TDs, like you said, 91 yards. Like, great game by Zach.
Well, it's going to be one thing that on the All 22 episode this week I'm going to break down is how Seattle changed a bit of their running scheme, and you could see they went more to a duo down the hill approach than more of their traditional zone stuff they started the season with because of, like you said, you don't have the quick twitch of Ken Walker back there. But if you look at it, a lot of the time when they tried to go to that wide zone, that outside zone run, they put Kenny Mack in, and they got Kenny Mack involved in that. And Kenny Mack was good, and they got him some touches. So there were some things to see that were good. I like the downfield passing attack now. Like, they're attacking all levels. Would have liked to see JSN be more involved, but I think today, and I'm going to put up one of our listeners' comments here. Eric brings up, do you think the plan was to get Fant more involved in the offensive passing game, or it just happened to be what the defense gave them? I actually think there was a conceded effort to get him more involved. You could see with some of their plays that he was getting the ball, he was by himself. Like, they were designing him to be open. And I think that's something they've probably gone back and looked at in film going like, okay, how are we not getting, Fant involved? Like, what are we missing here? Where are we not running him on the right routes? Is he not, what's the deal? And so I think they've really made a good effort this week probably in practice through film going, hey, how are we going to get him open? And that'll be another thing I'll talk about going into that Monday night game on the All 22 is the ways they got Fant involved in the offense. Because when you notice he's involved, JSN space opens up more, Tyler space opens up more, and then obviously, as we saw today, DK over the top opened up quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a case too where it's like you talk about all the weapons you have on this team. So sometimes you might think, okay, are they trying to get Fant involved? Well, like you said, he had some purposeful targets today, and like DK has a big game yards wise, and I think that we're only 3 games in. We're 3 games in is what we also have to realize in a brand new offensive scheme. Like, I just go back to the offseason and how we used to talk about how is this team going to be in November, December trending? Like, don't worry about the record. I think now that we're 3-0, we're like, man, like this team has a legit shot to be a good football team. And then you say, well, like you brought up the quarterbacks who we played, and it's great. There's so many positives. Starting 3-0 is 3-0, guys. 3-0 is 3
Yep.
professional NFL wins and 0 losses. I mean, that's big time. I don't care who you're playing. Now, yeah, there's favorable matchups, this and that. Monday night's going to be the next step for this squad. It's going to be the next step for the squad. Like you said, offense, there's things they got to clean up. Definitely the offensive line. It'd be great to get Ken Walker back. It sure would be awesome to get him back. We'll see, but I don't think that's going to happen. But it's just so early in this season. Let's just kind of let it develop. And I think, we're going to break down every game every week, but I think, say, after week 6 and getting into week 7, then we can sort of look back and be like, okay, how many targets has Fan had over this 6-7 week, start? It's just so hard to gauge it right now, because there's so many things that Grubb's trying to do and they're trying to figure out that I really think that, and I agree with you, they are, but it's just, like you said, you brought up Charbonnet last week. Like, guys, stop the hate on this guy. It's one game. Halfway through the season, then we can sort of evaluate that kind of stuff.
Well, and so here's another one too that I'm going to throw up here from Nate about DK. He says DK's looked solid this year compared to previous years. So what I'll say about that, and just to get on that point a little bit, because obviously DK has shown a little bit more to start this year than he has in past. I think a lot of it has to do with the scheme. Ryan Grubb understands how to use his weapons effectively. And I think that was something that was missing with Shane Waldron, especially in the last, 3 seasons. Shane Waldron had no idea how to get DK Metcalf open. He didn't know what kind of way to use him, to isolate him in matchups, get him in certain situations. Like, you look at his long 71-yard touchdown today. Big thing is his split is so far down that line. He's inside the outside corner. Now you got to have a communication breakdown, or what they did was a breakdown, between Jalen Ramsey and Javon Holland at safety. Like, they didn't know who was going to that deep part of the field because of where DK's lining up. Like, there's got to be a conversation between the two of them going, hey, I got the over the top. Clearly it didn't happen. They both sat on the shallow and DK runs by him. And those are the things I think Ryan Grubb brings to this, is he understands with the Dunze last year in Washington and the weapons he's had, this is how we create. We just make the defense try and communicate across the board. You now go look at what's going on in Chicago. They've got weapons. And what's happening again? The same thing we went through for the last 3 years. They have no idea how to use Keenan Allen or Roman Dunze or any of these weapons they've got down there, because of the fact that you have Shane Waldron as your OC. And he doesn't have a history outside of that of really orchestrating and running an offense. That's the one thing when we got Ryan Grubb, and everyone was all worried about the college thing. Ryan Grubb has still been an offensive coordinator. Shane Waldron never did. So DK's shocking start to this season, I think more has to do with the fact DK's finally being used to his strengths.
Yeah, and you and I expected DK to have a bigger year this year,
Yeah,
because
100%.
of Grubb, and not only because of Grubb, it's just because of how inept Shane Waldron was as an offensive coordinator. And we're like, when is he getting this guy involved? We've talked about, guys, want to harp on DK, and we brought this up a few times about the temper and, a few of these penalties. Well, how many, if you've watched the games in prior years, how many stretches of games have you watched the first 3 quarters where DK hasn't even touched the football, right? So that alone is like, come on, you have physically the most dominant receiver, and that doesn't mean he's the best receiver in the league, because he has some things to work on for himself to get there, but he has every single tool in the toolbox to be a top 2, top 1, top 3, whatever you want to say, in that top echelon of guys. So I think it's a combination of Waldron just doesn't know how to get anyone involved, and then Ryan Grubb now saying, no, wait a second, I have this guy, I recognize talent, and I know who I can put guys in the best spots to succeed. He's not shying away from 1 versus 1 at all. It didn't care. I mean, DK's went up against some of the top corners to start, Pat Surtain, Jalen Ramsey, and it wasn't like, oh my goodness, we can't go there because this guy's on DK. No, he's looking at it the other way around. I have DK against whoever. You guys figure it out. And then when you figure it out, I'll adjust to something else, like we've seen Grubb do. So yeah, DK, yeah, he's gonna have a great year. You're gonna see that more, where you're gonna have those big time plays, because they're gonna take shots and they're gonna set it up. And it's not always gonna work, but you're gonna see him pick up big yard plays like that. And talk about that grab. What was it, early too, before the big touchdown there?
Oh
The
yeah,
5 just went up and got it, and that's what you want to see from DK. You want to see, what I'm saying? You want to see more of that stuff where he goes up
Yep.
and paws it because he is bigger and dominant. Sometimes DK plays a little smaller than he is. Look, I love the guy, and I think I want him to be a Seahawk for life. Because you just don't replace a guy like that. So, yeah, I mean, if that answers kind of the question, I just think, yeah, it's a combo of Shane. And, here's another side note real quick about Shane. It's kind of like, I really think people don't pay attention to the Pacific Northwest much at all, because when we traded Russ, and we love Russ here, but we knew it was time. His game was declining. The rest of the country was like, what happened to Russell Wilson? Even the Denver Broncos, who gave the farm. And I feel like the same thing's happening with Shane. Like, they see this guy still thinking he came from the McVay tree. Like, did you watch any Seattle offense the last couple seasons? Probably not. Chicago, I guess, didn't. But like you said, now that's what's happening there.
Well, and that's the thing with the whole, if you even touch on that whole Russ situation in the Pacific Northwest and no one really paying attention, it even comes down to guys like K9. Like, all of a sudden now it's like, now that our team and we've got this new coach, everyone wants to kind of pay attention a little bit. It was no different than when Pete came in and we started to have that immediate success.
Yeah.
Now oh God, Seattle this, Seattle that. Like, look how good the defense is. The minute we have a bad game, everyone's gonna be like, oh yeah, Seattle's back to being Seattle. They're gonna choke it away. It's gonna happen. We all know it's gonna happen. But the one thing is like, I was just looking here on Twitter, and Gino even said, he came out in his press conference and said he is pissed off at the way he played today. Like, he still almost threw for 300, still was in the 60s with his completion percentage. But I bet you it's the 2 turnovers. And he's going about, he seemed miffed about the 2-quarter scoring lull in general, like his 2 interceptions, the fact they didn't really score in that middle part of the game. And the good thing now, though, and this is what I'll say about that, is you got a defense that can kind of bail you out a little bit. Like, you've been able to see that, as this defense can bail us out. It's not what it's been in the past, where it's like, crap, if we have a quarter, if we've got 3 or 4 drives where all of a sudden it just starts to die off and this team's going to get into trouble. We're in a lot better situation now. Now we got to figure out, obviously, if Murphy's out for a bit of time, if Leonard Williams is out for a bit of time. But, the one thing I was going to touch on too is Reek Wallen and Witherspoon and Trey Brown and Jenkins and Love and Kayvon Wallace. That secondary,
that's scary.
Is like night and day compared to last year. And you think about it, there's a lot of carryover. Julian Love's a carryover. Wallen's a carryover. Brown's a carryover. Witherspoon's a carryover. But how they play in this system is unreal compared to what they did last year. And they were good last year. Now we're getting to see, I think we're really getting to see how good Tyreek Woolen can be, how good Trey Brown can be, because they're getting coached correctly.
Yeah. Well, and also to the other side of that, and I don't want to call it dead weight, because, I respected the hell out of some of these guys. Adams didn't work out, but, Diggs early on was great. But, these were some people, some fans were like, you can't get rid of Diggs. You can't get rid of Diggs. You can't get rid of Bobby. Jordan Brooks. You can't. And then you'd be like, well, why can't you? This defense was terrible. And people look at statistics. And that's why I'm a mixed bag of stats. Like, sometimes, look, statistics and analytics, yes, they're a big part of the game. But some people just use statistics. Bobby Wagner leading this category in tackles again. Okay, well, where was he tackling? How was his run? How was his coverage downfield? Bobby's a Hall of Famer, but he's also like, guys, football's a young man's game. You guys don't last long in this league. I don't care. Father Time gets best everybody, man. Like, I don't care who you are. Bobby has lost the step, right? And the thing is that you needed a change. And you look at these guys, Dotson look like just guys are flying around the field. This is a fast defense. And you talk about the Jenkins and Kayvon Wallace. When we start accumulating these guys in the offseason, you're like, okay, oh, yeah, this guy Kayvon Wallace. Okay, there's another guy to save you. It was like you were accumulating this talent. So and now Mike's like, okay, what now? Where can I move the chess pieces around? Interchangeable pieces, like you said, is what Mike likes on his defense. Like those Swiss Army knives kind of guys. I can take Witherspoon. I can line him up in the neck. Okay, but now I got Trey Brown, who's a freaking dog. and I can, have him on the outside not missing a beat. And then these guys are coming down like Jenkins and not missing a tackle. Like you said, it's just so refreshing. Like and I get it. We had like guys can talk about, we haven't played a real quarterback. But like I said, once that ball is out of the hands of a QB, and I get it, it's different, upper echelon quarterbacks. But these guys are still coming down aggressively, making tackles, swarming. That D line's getting there. Like it's just so refreshing to see. And I agree, the turnover guys, but those are the guys that we mentioned 5-6 guys that needed that change of coaching. Reek, one guy, a couple other guys on that defense. But yeah, I mean, so far, man, the guys we brought in, right? Like Dotson, how happy are you with that guy? How happy are you with Dotson right now?
I'm actually really impressed with that whole linebacker room.
For sure. Oh yeah,
Drake Thomas came in today.
I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Drake Thomas comes in. He makes a great play on a screen and sniffs it out. Like, he looked like a valuable piece. Tyrell Dotson, I definitely think between him and Baker, he's going to be the guy getting that contract extension to stay in Seattle.
Oh yeah.
And you know what? Tyrese Knight played well too. Like, I was impressed with Tyrese Knight. Like,
Mike's high on him. Mike's high on him.
Yeah, he made some. You can see there's moments where he's still a rookie, but overall, he plays better than most rookie linebackers. Like, he kind of gives me that KJ Wright vibe a little bit. Like, when KJ first started that 2011 season for us, like, you could see he's still a rookie, but then he goes out and makes plays where you're like, and that's why Seattle went and got him. That's why Mike McDonald went out and got this guy in the 4th round and didn't wait and decided, this is my guy. I can see things in him. I want him. I'm just going to throw up a couple of the questions in here. Eric's got one here. In regards to defense, should we be concerned about the discipline on the defensive side? Some of the penalties were pretty boneheaded. I would say if they're not cleaning these up and getting better with them by week 5, I would say then we got some area of real concern. The one thing we're not used to, again, and this is something I think that because of the last 5 years with our defense, we haven't had that energy and that flying around mentality. And I think that's where you're seeing some of this. You got a lot of young guys on this defense, and they're going to play with a lot of emotion. And when we had the LOB originally, that 2012, late 2011 to 2014 era there, we used to take dumb penalties. And I think that's something that kind of got forgotten with that group, because they were so good they'd make up for it.
That's the thing.
I think that's what we're going to start seeing with this team. I think you're going to start seeing more discipline with it. I think you're going to see Mike McDonald start really focusing on that more, maybe so than Pete did.
Yeah.
I would say, Eric, like, if we're still talking about this come the Niners' first game, that we're still having issues with our penalties and taking dumb ones, I think you're going to see a change in tune, and that's where it's going to be like, yeah, that's a problem. We really got to focus in. Still early. Guys are still flying around. And if we were seeing massive point totals going up, then you could maybe, if it's extending drives and causing that, you'd have more of a, hey, this is a really big issue. But I think we're okay for now. We'll see how it goes in the next couple of weeks. I think you're going to see it maybe come down and clean up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I know that Spoon one was a little ticky-tack. And I know he gave him a little extension, but, he was, like you said, I would rather see flying around, aggressiveness, and taking penalties, and maybe a couple are boneheaded. Like, we can all agree there's good penalties and there's boneheaded. But, to me, like you said, 3 points given up, not a lot of like really stupid personal foul type stuff. Like, yeah, there's been a couple in 3 games, but like, that's going to happen. It's a young team. They're flying. But yeah, I agree. I think Mike, you're going to see it if it stays like that. He's going to be a little more not as free will as Pete. Like, Pete's like, hey, like, we all know Pete, Yellow B. Let your personalities, whatever. I love it. You do your thing. You take a penalty. Hey, we're leading the league in penalties, but we're one of the best defenses ever to play this game. So I don't care. I mean, pretty much. And so, hey, if this team turns out to be a top generational defense, I don't think we'll care either. But we're not there yet. So I think I agree. Like, Michael have them clean it up. It's to answer the question, it's definitely not a concern. Like, I think it's like it's because what you're seeing out there is aggressiveness, flying around the field. Like, you're just, I mean, guys are getting to the QB. I mean, Derek Hall, how awesome was that? What was it? Was it going in the half? He just comes from behind, and you're like thinking, do you not? I mean, I know he's okay. Maybe you don't have a lot of experience in the NFL, but if you got the ball that long, you got to know somebody's like he obviously was like, man, this guy's gonna get killed, and Derek Hall just crushed him. I mean, that's fun football, man. Like Derek Hall coming off the edge on another play for a sack, just get off me kind of stuff, right? It was just, man, yeah. So I can live with a few boneheads, but long answer. Yeah, Mike will clean it up. You just tell Mike's a disciplined dude, right? He's probably looking at that right now, saying, okay, Spoon, love you, man. Just kind of leave him alone there. I know momentum was taking us, and I get it, but he'll discipline. He'll get that dialed in, and I'm not worried about that. I'm more concerned like with you. I think you are too. Just getting the offense flowing. Getting the offense to a game. Maybe that does take to be week 6 or week 7, but we're just seeing a complete flow to this offense, and not, hey, great first, now we're penalties and stalling, and Gino fighting for his life, and now he's trying to, and that's the thing, now he's trying to make something happen. We saw it twice, the intentional grounding and the pick in the end zone where he's like, I'm falling, I just
and you know what, I will say in regards to you look at the last couple weeks now, when we're in our own, so I call it the negative red area, so right. our inside our own 10, it's odd that we throw deep routes so much out of that area with the lack of pass protection we've been able to sustain on deeper plays so far this year.
True.
As an offensive coordinator myself, like I'm trying to get out past my 20, and then I can open up things a little bit more. So I look at some of the plays where Gino, and that's something I'm going to break down too, is like looking at where is the idea coming from Grubb on what is he thinking about? Like, is he thinking the defense is going to bring a bunch of pressure at that point and he can hit something huge? Does that reward really weigh out the potential of what the negative, which is we've seen is 2 safeties. We've seen now this interception in your own area, the sacks, all that kind of stuff. Like, I think that's a situation where maybe you go to the shorter pass. Maybe you go and try and pound it out. And you got the other thing we got to remember, we got Michael Dixon at, punter who can flip a field for us. So why don't we, do that at a point in time? So it'll be really interesting to see when I break that down in the coming days here on how we're calling that game in that area. The other thing too, I got to say this about Derek Hall, man. Like Derek Hall, I am now going to
2 different players, man.
This. And I said this in the offseason. That dude was going to go off because Pete Carroll and that defense and Clint Hurtt did not know how to use that man.
Yeah.
Mike McDonald is living proof of that now because he played 370 snaps last year of defense, no sacks. He has played in 3 games and he already has 3 sacks. And he proves the speed factor too.
That's what I'm saying. Not even just the sacks, just the pressure, the way he's just involved in like every play. It seems like he's just, like you said, you called it, like this guy is going to be a dog on this D line. Like watch out. Right. So, I'm fired up for Derek. It's awesome, man. Eric, appreciate it, man. Super chat. Eric's been following the show. We appreciate it, man. Yeah, man, of course, we love this. So, we appreciate everybody that's been tuning in and joining us on live shows too. So it makes it worth it coming on with you guys and just talking Hawks, man. So Eric, appreciate it again.
I've got another one here I want to just put up on here. So this is from Blue and Green Zone. Why do y'all think we're not subbing Charbonnet out for some of the plays to stretch outside runs or passes? So I can see your question about the stretch zone runs to the outside because he's not really an outside zone back. In regards to the pass pro side of things, Blue and Green Zone, I think it has to do with how good he is in pass pro. Like Charbonnet is a fantastic pass protection back, and I think that's why they keep him in. Now I can understand your point when they like spread out and go to the empty set. Why is he out there? Well, most of their time, if you watch the running backs, they're running hitches, hooks, and drags. They're not really doing anything downfield too much. So I think that's where you see why they haven't been so keen to sub him out and put McIntosh out there, because McIntosh, I don't think has the pass pro skill set yet. Like he was good at it in college, but clearly there's some sort of gap from him coming to college to the system that they're running right now. So we'll see if that changes. But I don't think you'll see Charbonnet come out on designated passing downs. Now, you may start to see them rotate these guys a little bit more if they want to keep that wide zone run scheme going and get Kenny Mack in there to stretch that outside and pressure that outside of the defense in those ends. So we'll have to see how that kind of plays out. But that's a really good question.
Yeah, that is a really good question. I gotta comment on Mike McDaniels, man. I loved seeing him fired up and pissed off there at the refs. Just things weren't going his way. You know, he's lost Tua, and I think he thinks that he probably could have came out here and done a lot more on offense than he did. You know, they were held to 3 freaking points, and guess where those 3 points came from? Gino throwing the pick and giving the ball at the 5-yard line. So you take that away, we probably have a shutout. You know, so I think, you know, and I'm gonna say this right now. I know he gets this praise of being this. I'm not a Mike McDaniel fan, man. I just think, I don't know. His look today was hilarious. He's on the sideline there. He's really got this Miami vibe happening now. But I don't know. For me, I'm not a Mike McDaniels guy. So I loved it when he just lost it. You love seeing that, and that just shows, man, when a coach gets like that and loses it, just nothing's going right for him. And you know, our defense just playing out of their minds. Just, you know, here's the thing, and I'll touch on this. The importance of having we talked about this. The importance of having a legit backup quarterback in this league now, right? We're you know, I know they brought in would they bring in Huntley, right? So maybe, but that was more reaction. That's a reactive move. Where what were we doing? We were being proactive, bringing in a guy like Sam Howell, because, you know, if Gino goes down, which we hope that doesn't happen, you can feel confident that this guy can come in and keep your head above water for a little bit till your guy gets back. But it just shows the importance of having a legit dude in this league now, because guys go down all the time, and with all the quarterback protective rules in this league, you know, so that was funny with McDaniels, but also interesting where Tua goes down and you look at, you're a Dolphins fan and think, shit, this season's done. Where we wouldn't look at it like that. You know, what we saw to Sam Howell, I think, you know, if Gino, obviously, yeah, you're downgrading, but here's a guy, and it's not like the offense is, like we just talked about, has been firing all cylinders. You know, you feel like the defense can pick you up if Sam had to come in. So that was just an observation I had with their quarterback situation and not having a legit backup.
No, and you know, that's one thing that I think we've got to realize is we actually have that luxury this year, and more so than even when we had Drew Lock here. Sam Howell can go in and win us some games, I think, in this system, because the thing I think a lot of people maybe don't understand yet about Ryan Grubb's system here is he's taking a lot of the spread, or I should say pro-style spread offense that a lot of these guys have run in the college game and bringing those ideologies to the Seahawks and what they do. And so with that being said, you can see like the throws, there's a lot of things where Gino's more comfortable. Like Gino's got a lot more check with me at the line. He's got a lot more audibles at his disposal than I think he had in Shane Waldron's offense. So, you know, there's some things there that I think are making this an easier transition for some of these guys coming right in and adjusting to Ryan Grubb's offense. Now, the consistency factor is something that we've got to kind of get dialed in. You know, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out with Detroit. But, you know, here's something that Blue and Green Zone put in the chat, and I didn't actually know this, but 74% of the teams that start 3-0 make the playoffs. So that's a pretty good thing. Like when we did our schedule breakdown, I had them losing this game. I also anticipated Tua playing, but I thought they could lose this game. I honestly look at this and go, I don't know in their coming schedule who they are potentially like truly a true underdog to, because
I guess you say Detroit, right?
Detroit are going to be their house. But I don't know if Detroit is now truly a situation where we're looking at this and going, yeah, they're going to be like a double-digit underdog or something. No. Underdog. I think they're going to just be the normal 3 because Detroit's at home. Because Detroit barely beat the Cardinals today. They won 20-13. we've
Yeah.
had Detroit's number. Like we haven't really been we've been in shootouts with Detroit, but I think for us on our side now is our defense is even better than the couple times we've gone into Detroit and played in those games.
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance that we're going to be able to handle what Detroit can throw at us. And then you got to think within our own division now. Everyone's 1-2 except for us. The 49ers blew their 24-3 lead today, which I don't think a lot of people are anticipating to a Rams team that is that beat up. Like that Rams team is very, very decimated with injuries. I think there's trouble in San Francisco. I don't know if San Francisco is this power that we assume they are. Yes, George Kittle's out, but you don't blow a 24-3 lead generally in the NFL unless there's seriously some issues, whether it's schematically in the defense or what's going on, especially like if we're talking about a non-Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua Rams team.
Right, yeah.
Right? Like who's staff are throwing to that should be lighting you up that way. So it'll be interesting come Monday when we play that game. Like, what does the NFL in our division look like at that point?
Well, and I'll say this real quick about the 3-0. You know, we're 3-0, got a chance to. Hey, man, yeah, the goal is to win every football game, and I think I don't think we were doubting this team in the offseason. Like, I don't think we're like, there's no way this is a playoff team. It wasn't like this was a 5 or 6 win team. They've won 9 games the last 2 years. So in 1 year, they made the playoffs, being 9-8. I think we didn't want to jump too far ahead because, let's see, you have a new head coach. Everybody's brand new in this coaching staff, but the team was coached just poorly the last couple seasons with this talent that you had to figure, well, we're going to hover at least around 9, maybe 10. So I think that was always the thing. Now, how good can this team be? I'm pumped to be 3-0, but I also think that I'm not really gauging it on that right now. I think it's more just like, how is this team looking? And how are we going to look later in the year? And then if we make the playoffs and make a run, I mean, of course you're going to be jacked. But what I've seen from this defense, yeah, man, this is a legit playoff defense. And the offense, we have all the talent in the world. And I just think it's putting it together, shoring up that O-line, that's going to be a thing. But I think let's revisit the offense in a few weeks. We're going to talk about it every week, but just, let's evaluate them as a whole 6 weeks, 7 weeks in. And then we say, look, yeah, they're starting to put some pieces together. Ken's healthy. They're sustaining drives. Like, okay, like we're legit. So I look 3-0. You couldn't ask. There's no better start. 3-0 is 3-0. But because we could be 3-0, you'd be like, man, this defense still looks bad. Yep. Because we won 9 games 2 years in a row with a bad defense, right? And we weren't like, hey, like last year we won 9 games. That we talked about that 9 wins. We were like, that wasn't like a great 9 wins. That was like 9 wins on the stat sheet. 9 wins is 9 wins. But your head coach got fired, right? They won 9 games, 9 wins a year before. They made the playoffs without shipping off their franchise quarterback. People in the upper offices could say, well, they won 9. That's good enough. Hey, give it to Pete. Give him another year. They just lost Russ 2 years ago. Gino. No, they were like, no, this is not good football, right? And we talked about that Steelers game was kind of the last nail in the coffin there. And I think that's what you got to look at. I think right now 3-0 is exciting because of what you're seeing on the field, especially for that defense. And there's great things on that offense too. It's just putting it all together. So, yeah, man, I think this is definitely a playoff team. And to your point with the division, yeah, we touched on with Dan last week, right? Like it was like, hey, because here's the thing I'll touch on real quick about the Niners. Like usually when Purdy has a lead or the Niners have the lead, it's all good. They're going to seal that win up. So there might be a little more trouble than you think. It was can Purdy play from behind? Because that was his criticism. Like, oh, he's got all the talent. They get up to 20-0, and then it's just whatever CMC and blah blah blah. It's easy, but it's like, how do you play from behind? They had a lead, and now it's the defense. And like you said, no Cooper Kupp, none of their studs. So we'll see, man. We're in a good spot.
Well, and like if you go back and if anyone wants to, if you go back and watch our preview with Jesse from Last Second Sports on the 49ers, it's exactly what he echoed. He likes Purdy, but what can Purdy do from behind? When he's playing ahead of the chains and everything's good and the score is up in their favor, he can do just fine for you. But when he's forced now to make plays to get you back into a favorable situation, he struggles. Eric put in a good question. How did you feel about the D. Eskridge sighting? About as good as I could feel about it, Eric. He did his, typical D. Eskridge. Like, he's there. He's not really a factor. I'm not missing him too much in Seattle. I think I still have nightmares that we gave up the opportunity at Creed Humphrey to draft D. Eskridge. So I think that's one thing, that's a black mark on John's drafting over the years here is that pick, and will always be that pick. But just a couple things. So they just opened up the betting lines for next week. The lines are listed as a 4.5 point favorite going into Monday night. So this will be the first time Seattle will be an underdog, unless all of, basically for the whole factor of it. So, but that's kind of what we figured. That's a home field advantage, more favoritism than it is truly like, hey, we think Detroit's drastically better. Did you know, though, that DK Metcalf is now the record holder in Seattle franchise history for 50-plus touchdowns, the 50-plus yard touchdowns, I should say.
Yeah. I mean, I knew he was right up there with when he had the one last week with the top dudes. So, yeah, man.
But, one thing that's interesting is Corbin Smith quoted it. I just found it here, talking about the linebackers and Mike McDonald and what he said in his postgame. And he said, and this is something like, remember how Pete had certain keywords like it's legit or, things like that. Mike McDonald's, I found, could feel. He could feel them. He could feel their impact. And so he said he could feel Tyrese Knight and Drake Thomas today, which, as a linebacker guru, as the linebacker guy, and in this defense, I think that's the reason you saw some of the moves you saw with this inside linebacking core going into, cut downs. And when everyone was shocked that Drake Thomas made this team and John Radigan didn't. And, when I was there at that game down at Lumen for the preseason game, Drake Thomas came in, was wearing the green dot. He had just gotten cleared to come basically back after the couple weeks when they were in Carolina when he finally got off IR. And you give that guy the green dot, there's clearly a reason for that. That's not just some mistake of, we're just giving it to some guy. And I think that's why you see Drake Thomas is a good linebacker. He was a hell of a steal for us off of that Raiders practice squad or cuts. I think your three main linebackers for the Seahawks over the next 5 years here in the inside is going to be Tyrese Knight, Drake Thomas, and Tyrell Dodson. And I think that's who, is going to be the interesting kind of thing going forward, is that young group. And another thing Mike said here too that Corbin tweeted out, Mike McDonald says that he liked the process on 3rd and 15 play call that led to Geno's first pick, but obviously a poor outcome. Felt they had enough space to make that call out of empty. So they're behind the chains. And that's one thing I think we got to, and part of that again is like dumb penalties that Anthony Bradford's taking is putting them, like you said earlier in this, in 1st and long. When you get into 1st and long, and as a play caller myself, it really, like, you have to try and make up that yardage in one play. Well, the defense knows you're trying to now make up yardage. They aren't going to give you a lot of things. So, especially with Seattle's O-line being as inconsistent, I'll say, as it's been all year, that scares me making that kind of play call on that end. And I know people hate the whole, Seattle used to just, give up and, throw the quick little hitch or whatever. Sometimes you got to. The luxury today is, I think Mike McDonald went, we're playing against Skylar Thompson or Tim Boyle. I'm not too concerned that they're going to light us up, so we can take that risk. I don't know if we flip that script to say Monday night, they're doing that versus Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions offense.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, you're going to change it up a bit. I agree. I think he figures I'm so confident in this defense, and I just look at the other side and it's, this isn't going to be an issue. But, next Monday is just, it's just another step. I look at next Monday night. It's another step to growing this team. And you know what? That's the beauty of the schedule this year for Mike McDonald and the Seahawks. It's like, it's kind of steps, man. Like you started with Bo Nix, a rookie, and then you went on the road. And we talked about that. Going on the road, playing at 10 a.m. your time, getting ready, playing a tough, scrappy team. You know, they're not going to be a playoff team, but, you know, the veteran quarterback, you came out with a dub, right? And then you come back, and now you're back at Lumen. You're supposed to play in Tua. And now you're 3-0. There's things you like. There's some things you're going to clean up as a team, but you're going into Detroit, another road game, prime time. Mike McDonald on prime time Monday night stage. That's going to be cool. And I think that's just another step. You just climb in these steps, you know, and then we'll see how it goes. We're not going to win every game, guys, but like you said, you're confident that this team's going to go in and at least compete, you know, and that's what you're seeing. And then you go further in the schedule than that Niners game. That's going to be another big step. Here's the thing, whether the Niners have issues or not this year, you're playing against a team that is confident against playing you, because they have crushed us the last, I don't know how many seasons, feels like forever. So we still got to go beat them. We still have to go beat them. Look, us being 3-0, leading the division, Niners, they're still the team right now, and because it's so freaking early. Until that's proven, until we go in and beat them, and then we can say, okay, look, now we're the guys. This year might be our year, but we have to take those steps. Monday night's going to be the next step, and I'm just excited, man. Going at 3-0, primetime Detroit. You know they're not changing that game up. This team is legit. Mike McDonald has proven he's legit. And I was talking to somebody today, I can't remember, but talking about Baltimore and we're talking about head coaches and stuff like that. And you brought it up too. I know you and I talked about how they're pissed about Mike McDonald not in that building anymore. And that just sort of legitimizes this hire that, you know, we were screaming, guys. Some guys had, I had this guy on top of my list and offensive this and blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, wait a second. John Schneider might have something here with this defensive young mind. And we had guys on the show talk about the overlap is just not as much as you'd like. Coordinator to head coach. Oh, he's a great coordinator, so his next step is head coach. It's just natural. No, that's not true at all. Mike's a great football mind, like a lot of guys, but he seems like an exceptional football mind. But he also seems like a leader. Yeah. Of 53. And that what gets you excited. Because I look at that, and because when I talk about Mike McDaniels, and I don't follow the Dolphins like we follow the Hawks, he's probably an offensive genius, but we'll see. Who's the better leader? Well, I don't know yet. Mike's coached 3 games, but I like Mike McDonald, and I just like what he brings in that as a leadership, in that leadership role as head coach, man.
I 100% agree with you, and I think the other thing that helps Mike McDonald has made this transition as successful as it's been for through the first 3 games is Leslie Frazier. And, you know, I honestly think that is a bigger hire than Ryan Grubb, than on Audrey Durde. You know, I think we have to really look at that and go, the fact John Schneider and Mike McDonald recognized, hey, look, he's a first-time head coach. Let's go get a guy that's done it, that's been successful doing it, and knows what it's like to coach in this league for a long period of time. And they went out and got the right guy. Because I think if they didn't get Leslie Frazier, I think there might have been some more hiccups that we would have seen through training camp and more kind of things going like, oh, you know, like he's not a seasoned head coach yet. But I think because he has that sounding board of Leslie Frazier to be like, hey, like, how do we handle these bonehead penalties that we're taking? And Leslie Frazier comes in and he might say, hey, we need to do this. This is something I've done in the past. It gives Mike the ability to have someone to lean on in that regard until Mike's more comfortable handling those situations. So there's 2 more questions I want to get to before we wrap up to tonight's show. So Blue Greens there goes, you know, the first thing they'll say Monday is Seattle owns Detroit. This is a trap game. Lions are good. Totally agree with you. I got a feeling we're going to hear Joe Buck and Troy Aikman say that on their broadcast of, oh, you know, I don't know how Mike McDonald's going to handle his first true primetime game and because it will be his first primetime game, and Pete Carroll's not here anymore. And, you know, they're going to flash up Pete's primetime record on Monday night. if Seattle goes in and plays the way they've been playing defense, and the offense can string together more consistency in the middle of the game and not have that lull they've kind of been having, I think there's a good chance that Seattle does just fine there. And so that leads actually into our second question from Nate. Do you truly believe that the Seahawks can or will start 4-0 to start this year? I think they could, but got to clean up some of the holding flags and defensive flags as well. I truly think there's a good shot Seattle does start 4-0, man. Like, it's going to be tough. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. But I think Detroit secondary, I think, is going to struggle with the way that Seattle now runs their routes and the concepts they're using. It's nothing like Seattle's done in the past for them with Shane Waldron. And if K9's back, which there sounds like there's a chance he's back this week, and Mike McDonald kind of alluded he was pretty confident he was going to get back. Having the 1-2 punch of Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet in there, I think will be a huge factor. And again, if this offensive line can get some more consistency, if Anthony Bradford can stop taking the stupid penalties, I think there's a good chance Seattle starts 4-0. And I think in regards to some of the injuries, Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, that extra day, they're not playing Sunday, they're playing Monday. Maybe one of those two guys gets back and goes in there. And then the last question here from Eric. Do you all think the 12s were louder than the last few years? Seemed like announcers noticed a difference. I totally agree. I don't know about you, Ryan, but even on my broadcast that I was watching, much louder, much more passionate fan base. I think not that they weren't passionate before, but I think it started to die off the last couple of years. And even when I was down there for the Browns game and it was like 65% capacity of what the stadium normally is, it was loud. And it was a lot louder than it's been. And I think that's just like what we've said this whole time, the energy that has now been brought back to Seattle because of the fact they're not watching the same team and the same scheme and the same this over and over again and watching it get diced up and cut apart. I think that's why you're seeing the fan base start to come back. They're not to 2013 standards or what that LOB era was. But I think there's a chance they could get back to that if this team continues down this path.
Yeah, and I think I touched on that last pod where I was like, I think you're gonna hear them louder, and I do think they were louder. I mean, here's the thing, man. Like, you're coming back home 2-0, and you feeling like this team is exciting. This team can be a legit team. So it just amps it up a bit. You're just gonna be on your feet. Now look, opening night, loud. The 12s are back, and we said that the 12s have to be back, but the team has to give them a reason to be back and be loud again, and they're giving them a reason, man. I mean, when you see that, especially the defense flying around, it starts with the defense, man. Like the offense, yeah, that's icing on the cake when you're at home with the 12s. But the defense, man, when the defense is pinning their ears back and going against guys and the fans are in it and it's loud, and that's when you get loud. That's when everyone's on their feet, when the defense is on the field and you're just trying to rattle that QB. And what did we say? What is the key? Rattle this kid early. Just be like, where am I? I've never been in a place like this before. How the hell am I going to play football? And that's what the 12s bring. So, yeah, it probably was louder. I mean, yeah, I'm sure that, I know they rate with the decibels. I don't know what the statistics were, but it's one of those things where you just kind of knew it was going to be loud as hell. And I think as we continue on, it's just going to get louder and louder, man. Like, it just, why wouldn't it? They're giving them a reason now to get super loud and get back to saying the 12s mean something, You don't want the 12s to become a running joke. Like, probably was a bit of a running joke in the league the last little while. Like, oh, the 12s, right? Because, you talk about that record, barely scraping a 500 the last how many seasons. So that's not a home field advantage, and that's not going to bring the crowd on their feet. So, yeah, man, I'm just pumped overall. 3-0, guys. Win's a win. That's the name of the game, right? So we're 3-0, everything else aside, going into Detroit, Monday Night Football. I mean, just it's the season is. We knew it was gonna be fun, but it you never know until you start playing. I just can't believe we're already getting into week 4, man. This season's gonna frickin' fly. We talked all off season, all the anticipation, like when's the season going to start, guys? You just counting it down. Now it's here and it's going to fly. But so enjoy the ride right now, guys. Just enjoy the ride of how this team's progressing and growing in this new regime and this new era of Seahawks football. That's what I'm really excited about. Take it all in. Go back and rewatch the game tonight. Like that's always a good way to, take it all in. And but guys, we got some cool stuff coming up. Bryce mentioned we're going to start doing all 22, breaking down different aspects of the game. So just basically a film breakdown, man. So it'd be cool. So if you're into that, that's going to be a thing coming up on the show as well. And we're going to have a preview show coming up this week as well with Jackson Bevins from Cigar Thoughts. Hey, he's going to be coming on with us to break down the Detroit Lions game. So we're super pumped about that because we love chopping up with Jackson. He's been on the show a few times already. So, look out for those next two pods we got going down. And, Bryce, anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
And also, guys, we've just launched our apparel store. So go to HawkstoneRundown.com. You guys can check out some of the stuff, and we'll be releasing stuff throughout the season. This is our first kind of week of it. So you guys will see some of the hat designs we've got, hoodies, and then eventually, guys, we'll get into some alternate logos that we've come up with between myself and Ryan that'll go on hats, T-shirts, and hoodies throughout. So make sure you guys take a look over at that and, give us your feedback.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll be posting the link to that on the channel too coming up this week. So then it's right there for you to have a look. And man, so that's it. And guys, anybody watching this episode tonight, tuning in, just make sure you go down if you haven't subbed yet, hit the subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. And we're going to keep bringing you guys these awesome live episodes after every game. So look out for those next ones coming up. And that's it. Hawks, 24-3, 3-0. That's it for us tonight. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.